Welcome to episode 2 of AI Pulse by CloudThat. Today I have with me dear friend Sandeep Alur. He is CTO for Microsoft Innovation Hub India, and he's been doing wonderful job with Microsoft. We have collaborated quite a few times in the past, and I'm so happy to have you, Sandeep, on this podcast.
So thanks for having me, Bhavesh. It's my pleasure being here.
So today, Sandeep, we're going to talk about the new announcement that Microsoft has made
Yeah.
in the recent Ignite that's ended a couple of days ago. And before I delve into the changes or the announcement for that, let's talk about what Microsoft has for the agentic AI world.
Then absolutely. I think Bhavesh, Ignite was significant in my view. A ton of goodness came out. But as Microsoft, for the last, I would say, a few quarters, we've been leading this narrative called frontier firm. So becoming frontier has been a thematic. What does it really mean? At the grounds level, if you look at any enterprise, the aspiration is to become AI first enterprise. Now, there has to be a method to how we get there. So the three swim lanes, largely, I'll get to agentic in a bit, but the three
Sure.
swim lanes. Swim lane one is every individual being empowered with AI assistants, right?
Okay.
So today, all of us have access to AI assistants, view them as buddies. Each of us being empowered, let's say in CloudThat, all of them having access to an AI buddy, be it a developer or a sales persona, anybody for that matter.
Okay.
It's given with a big tick mark there. Second swim lane is where every enterprise is transitioning. The intent is for them to become a human agent teams. That means agents joining workforce is reality.
Interesting.
So the third swim lane is, of course, human-led, agent-operated. In all the thematic, I think what's central to how we are leading this, I would say, drive for enterprise is to help them adopt the agentic AI as a thematic. That means this calendar year, we saw agents joining workforce
Wow.
as digital colleagues. And as Microsoft, we have a platform which basically makes it real for businesses to design, build, operate, host, and eventually manage the entire life cycle. We truly have a platform where businesses can realize agentic AI on the ground. And of course, in Ignite conference, ton of goodness came to complement this thematic.
Great. Yes, I mean, a lot of good announcements. The first one was the entire Frontier Firm AI initiative. Can
Yeah.
you talk a little bit about that first?
No, absolutely. See, look, the best part of my job, Bhavesh, is I get to talk to one or two customers every single day of the year at the Innovation Hub.
Yes.
That gives me enough exposure to understand what's working, what's not working for customers, right? Um, One of the things I also do on the ground is lead these AI boardroom workshops. Now, the question that gets asked of us in boardroom conversation is, tell us two things. One is how real AI is as of this morning, and give us prescription to run faster.
Yes.
So there's a method to madness. Why am I saying madness? Because look, all of us are drawn towards innovations every single day.
Mhm.
How do we find discipline in chaos? So on that trail, a frontier narrative, becoming frontier is a method to how, as an enterprise, you can put a structure on your adoption drive. Now, it's
Got
not an overnight adoption.
Mhm.
It's a multi-quarter, multi-year adoption cycle. So to start with, yes, I'm going to empower people with AI assistance. Second, I look at onboarding agents. Third, of course, infuse autonomy. So if you look at this thematic, largely what's resonating well with customers is, if you look at org structures, it's very rigid.
Mhm.
In your company as CloudThat, you have an org
Correct.
structure.
Yes.
Can you visualize a time in the near future where org structure also includes agents complementing humans?
Wow.
That means it's largely a work chart where humans and agents, they are collaborating with the sole intent to drive productivity, right? That's the
super
reality on the
interesting.
ground.
Yeah, that's super interesting, and I think this is like putting so many thoughts in my mind
Yeah.
about what I can do with my organization, with agents and stuff. And I also really love that I think Satya always comes with this kind of very cool Uber narrative.
Yeah.
I remember the past one was growth mindset, right?
Absolutely.
And we adopted that at CloudThat, and it has such
Yeah.
a great benefit, right? And I think this the Frontier Firm AI initiative, I think it's kind of really gives a name to a process of becoming a frontier firm. And
Absolutely. See, today the best part of what witnessing is largely technology innovations every single day. But
Mhm.
frontier narrative also puts business in the forefront. Largely, what enterprises are going through is not a technology adoption at all.
Mhm.
They're largely investing, or rather, should invest in a business engineering problem. They have to
Correct.
engineer your business for performance and agility. That's what
Absolutely.
AI gives you, the ammunition to get there.
Yeah, I think a lot of times when businesses start with kind of figuring out what they're looking for,
Yeah.
and then work backwards to develop agents to do that, instead of developing agents and then figuring out, okay, how can we use it? I think that's pretty beneficial for them.
Absolutely. Look, yesterday I went to a customer. The question asked was, Sandeep, how do we avoid agent sprawl? Imagine IDC states, as per the, if you look at the survey,
Mhm.
by 2028, there'll be 1.3 billion agents on this planet.
Wow.
Right? Now, it shouldn't be an agent sprawl.
Yeah.
You should know what agents are joining your workforce.
Mhm.
You should know what those agents are meant to do. It's like you employing a workforce. You're going to have 20 people joining your team next month.
Mhm.
Now, how many agents are also joining along with them? So,
Got it.
do they have a JD? Humans have JD. Your agents will also have a job description. That means the instruction set for
Interesting.
what agent should do is a JD, and that's the way forward.
Wow, that's really interesting, right? Like the
Yeah,
agent should have JDs as well.
absolutely.
Very interesting.
Because you know why that is so? Because we're saying agents are like human persona. They're digital colleagues.
Mhm.
They're workhorses. They're task solvers. They better have a JD. Right?
Very interesting. All right. So the first big announcement that I want to talk about, apart from this, was Agent 365.
Yeah,
I'm going to talk a little bit about that, what it is, and how does it help organizations.
absolutely. Look, one of the key feature or a thematic that emerged in Ignite is observability at
Mhm.
every layer. Right? That means I said agents joining workforce. Somebody has to manage them, or rather,
Yes.
somebody has to. It's like onboard,
Mhm.
supervise, control. Right? Agentifies that framework,
Okay.
which helps you control the agent's performance.
Got it.
What agents are available for us? How are they functioning? And trust me, it's not about one agent, right? It's about it's a multi-agent scenario. You'll have multiple agents joining workforce,
Mhm.
and they will collaborate among themselves.
Mhm.
But you should also know who is calling whom for task execution. So you will keep an eye on who are these agents, how are they functioning, are they doing things right, are they failing? If they're failing, where are they failing? All the stuff is something you have to observe, manage as you drive towards agility. So Agent
Absolutely.
365 is that control
Hmm.
plane which helps you have a uber view of everything happening in enterprise in terms of agentic AI.
Got it. And it also reduces risk for businesses, right? Because I mean, you have a single location for, like you mentioned, audit and oversight and things like that. So I think it's a risk
Absolutely.
reduction mechanism.
Absolutely. See, here's the reality: when your digital footprint increases, the threat landscape also increases.
Yes.
So first thing, while agents are performing, the outcome should be auditable. Right? Tomorrow, imagine you have a feature, you have an agent who is basically approving or rejecting a claim. Right? Now, if a rejection happens future, you're accountable for why rejection happened. Is there a way you can go and audit that agent saying, hey, by the way, last month you
Hmm.
rejected five claims,
Correct.
give me reasons.
Yeah.
Right? Or can you troubleshoot if something has gone wrong? So I think you need to have fine control of agents performance.
Hmm.
It shouldn't be a black box at all, Bhavesh.
Correct.
One thing which we've always seen in the past, you and I have collaborated on AI in the past.
Yes.
Machine learning, deep learning,
Yes.
it's a black box. You don't know what's happening inside.
Hmm.
Explainability is a big question. Now,
Big
in the
question.
world where agents are multiplying in an organization, I think you need to have, as a chief risk officer, as a chief ethics officer, or a chief, a CXO responsible for growth of a business,
Hmm.
to be in control of every agent working for you.
Correct.
Right?
Absolutely. And the Sandeep, so that's really great. The next big announcement I thought was Agent Factory,
Yeah.
right? And I think how does that correlate with the Agent 365 announcement that was made?
Sure. See, Agent Factory is a larger thematic, right? Look, if you look at Azure AI Foundry, is a one-stop shop for everything AI. You also have Copilot Studio, where you
Hmm.
can basically build agents. Now, you need a platform which helps you, first of all, decide on what agents you're building.
Hmm.
Second, basically build those agents on open protocols, which is MCP A to A.
Hmm.
You also need to ground those agents on enterprise data, which is where a new thematic called IQ comes in. We'll talk about that.
Hmm.
And third, once you build ground on data, you also need to host them at scale.
Correct.
Now, all of these things happens under the big umbrella called Agent Factory,
Got it.
right? So, in short, Microsoft, we've turned 50 years as of April early
Mhm.
this year. We've been a software factory for a long time. With the reimagined platform, we're largely helping enterprise to build agents. So we're basically an agent factory as a firm.
Very
That's
interesting.
reality on the ground.
Yeah, I think one of the things that I really like the phrase used was usually we say faster time to market,
Yeah,
but I think with Agent Factory they were mentioning faster time to value,
absolutely.
which is
See,
really interesting.
yeah, see, also this is where economics comes into play, Bhavesh. It's not that you can spin off agent left and center. Your
Hmm.
CFO will question, by the way, you spun off 20 agents, they're
Correct.
consuming one of the best models on the planet. We're burning money. Where's the ROI?
Hmm.
Right? So hence, when I said earlier, job description, unless you walk the trail to understand why are we building this agent,
Hmm.
by the way, who are these agents joining workforce?
Correct.
Why should we have them? If you start with that question, you'll you'll not end up with agent sprawl. You'll have agents who will going to drive value for end of the day.
Correct. Great. So I think the next big thing I think for me was the
Yeah.
IQ stack
Oh yeah.
that was announced, especially Work IQ, Fabric IQ, and the Foundry IQ combination. Do you want to talk a little bit about that?
Absolutely. In fact, it is, in my view, the much required semantic intelligence layer across the board. So,
Hmm.
if you look at the work IQ, this is a intelligence layer or semantic on top of your work data, which is files in SharePoint,
Hmm.
your emails, your calendar, your chat conversations.
Hmm.
All of that is work related. So someone needs to elevate that as a semantic layer, and that's work IQ. Second, of course, when you move toward Fabric, see, Fabric is our intelligent data platform, right? All your enterprise assets are aggregated and under one lake. Now, largely what we've done so far is expose the semantic model
Hmm.
in one lake onto Power BI because that's where you are visualizing.
Correct.
Either we can expose that semantic layer to AI to consume it. That's a
Hmm.
Fabric IQ.
Okay.
Eventually, Foundry helps you ground your AI on ground truth, and that's semantic intelligence layer right there. So, long story short, the work IQ, Fabric IQ, Foundry IQ is semantic intelligence being elevated for AI to consume. And the best part is because you're elevating in that fashion, you're making sure applications are grounded on factual data.
Very interesting.
Otherwise, you'll end up with things which are like hallucinations,
Hmm.
wrong responses, all those things. But these layers are making sure large language models are grounded, or rather, these layers are ensuring the right context is brought to the model.
Hmm.
Because eventually, model is as good as data. I mean, I would say
Correct.
model is as good as context.
Yeah.
So the right context is surfaced, and that's the power of the semantic intelligence
Yeah,
layers.
and I think that's really important. Like I was very surprised. I use Copilot, and I don't remember the exact question, but I
Yeah,
just asked the question, and it remembered the context that hey, you are asking this because you are CEO of CloudThat, and you have 500 people, you are into IT consulting and training, and so it had that layer, and then it added that to my question, and
absolutely.
that it was able to give me a more accurate answer because of that kind of knowledge it has from my work information.
Absolutely. In fact, if you look at it, the reality check is if you use Microsoft 365 Copilot,
Hmm.
there is voice mode in it.
Yes.
You can ask voice mode, hey, by the way, what are my meetings for today? It should actually tell me, Sandeep, your first meeting with Bhavesh this morning, podcast recording. Afternoon, you have so and so meeting.
Hmm.
Evening is free for you. It can't be outside of that. That's
Correct.
a fact,
Yes.
right? I'm relying on my AI to help me in my day in the life at work. Factual alignment is supremely critical. That's where work IQ becomes so elementary
Absolutely.
in that journey.
Yeah, and I think that's going to be a main difference compared to I think if you use a maybe a third party model on a third party website which
Yeah,
doesn't have access to your work data.
yeah, yeah.
I think so. I think the fact that Copilot has access to your work emails and
Absolutely,
calendar, I think it can make much smarter assertions.
absolutely. So Copilot is that UI for AI, which basically is sitting on the larger the work data and driving factual conversations.
They also the announcement for while we are discussing about
Yeah, yeah.
Copilot, one announcement made there was about in-country processing, which I
Oh
think is
yeah,
very important for India
yeah,
and sovereignty
yeah,
and stuff. You
yeah.
talk a little bit about that.
Absolutely. See, sovereign cloud, sovereign data, making sure the conversation that you're having with your co-pilot remains in that country.
Hmm.
Because if you look at India, digital PDP, there is of course, the DPDP talks about you can actually data can go out and come back, but you can't
Hmm.
store it elsewhere.
Correct.
Uh, but of course, considering the financial services, healthcare, anything sensitive, no, nobody wants to leave that trail outside the country for security purposes and obvious
Hmm.
reasons. So, which is where I think it is a commitment from Microsoft to make sure Copilot conversations remain
Hmm.
uh, in the bounds of the country. That way, there'll be a lot more usage, lot more trust. I think it's a trust factor.
Got it.
If I'm asking a question with my data, can I trust that this remains in the country? I
Hmm.
think while we can prove that nothing is getting stored by Microsoft, anybody else, we're not using data for any training purposes.
Hmm.
Your data is your data. But I think largely, if we can also ensure we address the sovereign requirements, trust elevates.
Correct.
Trust elevates, usage increases. Right?
Absolutely.
Um, that's the feature that
Yeah.
was announced recently. Of course, it's a beginning, but a lot more will happen in that trail.
Yeah. And I heard that this was for, I think, more than 40 countries that this requirement is now done by Microsoft. So I think that's a really huge pool of countries which was requirement for sovereignty
Of course.
in data storage. I think
Yeah.
will be met by that.
No, no, absolutely. See, the reason why data centers are also mushrooming is because there are local law requirements,
Yes.
right? So we always heard of GDPR, but those such I would say guardrails are been put by every other country. So you have to be present, making sure you abide with the local laws, data
Correct.
security, and storage security. All the stuff
Yeah.
becomes essential.
So any of our listeners who are working in other countries, and I think this announcement is also very applicable
Yeah,
for those countries as well.
absolutely.
Also, one of the interesting thing was the agent mode, a co-pilot control system,
Oh yeah.
which I think is kind of really neat because, like you said, you need somebody to monitor the agents and make sure they're
Yeah.
working well.
See, two things. Let's talk about software engineering because the agent mode, while it's omnipresent in wherever you go, you'll have an agent mode. You have an agent mode in Excel, PowerPoint
Mhm.
also, but lot relatable. The relatability is a lot higher when it comes to agent mode for a software engineer.
Mm.
Now, of course, as we have heard in the recent past, Collins' dictionary's word of the year is vibe coding, right?
Yes.
Interestingly, so now when developers are in an IDE, VS Code, is there a way, rather than me chatting, I give instructions, I give commands, is there a way agent can execute that as a task, right? And that's one for sure. But switching go to Microsoft 365 as a tarmac, um, how are people using these agents?
Hmm.
How are Copilots being used? You need a control system to manage and oversee those operations. See, how do you know people are using it? How are they using it? Because they're using, how much productivity multiplication is happening. You need
Mhm.
to get a sense of that. Eventually, you have to measure that value.
Yes.
That's where Copilot control system comes in, right? Can you claim that in cloud that all of them have, let's say, GitHub Copilot, and hence X percentage of code written in cloud that consulting arm of yours is AI generated, which otherwise would have taken you 3 4 months
Yeah.
more time to do the same task. That's the value you have to basically equate to. And how do you
Absolutely.
get there? I know there's a method to all that, right?
Yes. So,
Uh,
Sandeep, like I there's two views of the world in this, right?
yeah.
Like with the entire vibe coding and stuff. I have nieces who'll be joining college
Oh yeah.
very soon, and of course,
Mm.
I'm a hardcore techie, so I'm kind of playfully nudging them towards taking computer science.
Yeah.
But there's also this big thing in the market there with the entire vibe coding. There will be no need for computer engineers in the next 5 7 years, 10 years. What are your thoughts on that?
See, quickly, I think AI is complementing all of us in every facet of our life. This morning, one of the podcasts I was listening to, an executive admin, shared her experience of using AI in
Wow.
how she's able to save 30 hours um, a month
Wow.
in her day in the life at work, right?
Interesting.
30 hours a month is not a small
Yes.
productivity gain
Yeah,
there.
that's like 4 days almost, or four
Exactly.
working days,
The,
1 week almost. Yeah.
exactly. By the way, she is not techie.
Hmm.
She's actually working for, in that interview, a healthcare firm, right? Valuable time saving so that she can focus on high value work.
Yeah.
Now, my point is, it's there for all of us to benefit.
Mm.
But what we're witnessing is on the ground when it comes to IT, of course, software engineers are the ones who are actually building applications. Now, AI is far ahead in terms of what it can do for developers. The need of the hour is to, first of all, not compromise on your basic foundation, which is if you have to computer science engineering, yes, you do that as a basic because those fundamentals are so critical.
Yeah.
Now, when you're building a software, you will not develop like you've done in the past. You'll orchestrate an outcome,
Yeah.
right? To orchestrate an outcome, you better know technology because you know what? You are an
Very
architect, you're the designer, you're basically orchestrating for an outcome. You're the thinker. You're not letting AI think on your behalf. No.
correct.
You will rattle into something which you don't want as a desired outcome. So
Hmm.
what is required is you when thinking head, you should be a thinker. And for that to happen, you should have the foundations right. So invest in learning, invest in foundation education. And once you do that, you cannot afford not to learn AI tools
Correct.
to complement you on your job.
Yeah.
So future would be you use a term called probably I'm just saying super developers are required.
Hmm.
What does it mean? People who are developers but who also know how to
Hmm.
use AI to drive outcomes.
Yes.
So experience or no experience doesn't matter, but foundation knowledge and AI complementing you is that persona that you would want to hire in the future, Bhavish.
Absolutely. No,
Right?
and I agree. That's what I keep telling my nieces as well. That look, as long as you learn AI and coding
Absolutely.
both at the same time,
Yeah, yeah.
you'll be pretty employable. I think now and in next 10 years to come for
Yeah.
at least.
See, one of the CEOs said this. While people talk about productivity gains, time saving, cost saving, etc., what about delight at work? You want to be a magnet as a company to
Mhm.
attract talent because you know
Yes.
what? Let's say CloudThat, you're AI first, so people should join here because you know what? They have a high um, usage of
Yeah.
AI, and hence, I love being in an environment. So that's the future
Absolutely.
for any company.
So I remember I was kind of in one of the presentations of Microsoft, and Microsoft the folks were talking about GitHub Copilot,
Yeah,
right? And that sharing various stats when they surveyed the developers about GitHub Copilot,
yeah,
and it is a I mean, of course there was productivity gain and all
yeah.
that, right? But what was super interesting to me was that their job satisfaction also increased,
Absolutely.
which
See,
was which was
yeah,
surprising for me, because they are not wasting time in this kind of finding this, finding that, give me a sample code of this, sample code of that. They're actually able to execute faster, and so that actually increased their happiness at work, which I think was very interesting for me.
no, no, absolutely. I would say, what if somebody gamifies your work?
Yeah.
That's fun, right? It's fun to work. We never related, fun at work to
Hmm.
actual core work.
Yes.
So that's the future.
Great. All right. So moving on,
Sure,
Sandeep, back to our announcements of
sure.
Ignite. Um, there were some announcements about Sora 2 being available in M65 now, and users can now freely use it and kind of generate some cool videos.
Yeah. So look, every innovation that Microsoft investing in, let's say OpenAI, 5.1 came out recently.
Hmm.
Sora 2 came out some time back. By default, you'll see in a short period of time they're available as APIs in Azure Foundry,
Yeah.
right? The fact of the matter is, as Microsoft, we basically have access to those IP,
Hmm.
and hence eventually they'll find its way into our mainstream products.
Hmm.
So all those copilots, agents are powered by these, I would say, highly intelligent language models.
Hmm.
So Sora 2 being available or any other model being available is a matter of time. But the larger point here is eventually what matters to each of us is experience.
Yes.
It's not about using Sora. It's about what outcomes am I driving, what experience I'm extending, how are we becoming productive. It's Sora to today, it can be something else tomorrow.
Hmm.
But is it helping my experience to be a lot more richer?
Hmm.
That's where I think the larger micro thematic is emerging. In
Yes.
after it's about experience.
Yes.
Nobody cares what model is behind the scenes. Would we
Correct.
care? No, nobody cares, right? So that's the
Yeah.
reality.
But I think a lot of marketing firms, media firms will be very excited,
Oh yeah.
because I've seen some of the video generated by Sora 2, and it's been really amazing.
Oh yeah.
I think the quality and the context has been really great. So I think a lot of these media houses might be excited to use that in the near future.
Absolutely. Look at it this way. It's audio and video both, right? I was talking to one of the startup founder recently. You must have heard of Gallery 5. These are the folks who actually released the first AI fully AI powered Mahabharat, the OTT
Yeah, yeah,
episode.
correct, correct.
All the characters are AI generated. They're
Yeah,
not real at all, right? If somebody resembles in reality, it's a coincidence, and
yeah.
that person become famous. But the point is, the creative power is so high these days,
Yeah,
in terms of, again, AI is complementing the creative process, right? You're actually nudging AI to help you, or rather passing on your thinking,
hmm.
and somebody is putting that on paper.
Yes,
In the past, you probably did sketch work. Today you're translating sketchwork ideas into a language,
yes,
and that's translating that English into meaningful
correct.
visualization.
Absolutely.
Yeah, media houses, again, going back to the question you asked for your niece in terms of whether what should they do. Here also, even the world of media, unless you adopt, embrace the power of
Yes,
AI in your stream of work, you will always will be behind. You
correct.
got to, whether it's using Adobe or a
Yeah,
Canva or any tool for that matter, you got to understand how can AI help you do things faster, better there.
yeah. And so recently, like we have won one more award. We can't talk about it. It'll be
Okay,
announced later.
congratulations in advance.
Thank you. But I wanted like so announcements. I wanted to give a brief to the marketing team that hey, I think we should announce it in this fashion.
Yeah,
And usually it'll be just words. And now in using Copilot, I was able to kind of quickly generate some images and some graphics and some points, and that just
wonderful.
helps you convey your point so much stronger.
Yeah, yeah,
And there's a for them to also understand what you are thinking and produce something similar. I think so. I
absolutely.
think everything is touched by AI. I think nowadays.
That's, see, there's no boundary for creativity, right?
Yeah,
Who is putting the ceiling there? There should not be any ceiling for creativity. So that's why
correct,
AI helps you go past that.
correct. Another thing I think my team is super excited about is Azure Copilot.
Yeah,
So earlier you had to do a lot of this manual tasks, restart server or
yeah,
patching this and that. Now you can
yeah,
actually literally wipe code your way into managing Azure.
yeah.
So I think the people are very excited about it.
Absolutely. See, the wipe code, it has good connotation, negative connotation, in my personal opinion.
Okay.
Why negative? Because you see, wipe coding, the significance of that is you worry less about the code you're writing, you focus on the outcome.
Correct.
Now, in reality, you just can't do that, because when something goes wrong, you have to troubleshoot. Of course, you can use
Yes.
AI help to troubleshoot. Even in
Mhm.
this case, Azure Copilot, you are the pilot.
Yeah.
So you basically, lot of what you did manually, lot of what you did reactively,
Yeah.
now can move towards proactive work
Yeah.
when it comes to, let's say, SRE agent.
Yeah.
SRE agent is a valuable asset which ensures reliability, upkeeping of a lot of things on your digital assets. So yes, I think Azure Copilot is honestly a blessing in disguise.
Yeah.
But as I said, the philosophy of Microsoft is to ensure there is a AI buddy in every consumer endpoint for conversations to be meaningful and work to be executed and tasks to be solved by agents.
Correct. And I think like when somebody is managing Azure, the sometimes you want to, for example, increase the storage
Yeah, yeah,
or
yeah,
increase the machine size or do something.
yeah.
And now instead of going and looking at documentation and figuring out those things, you can maybe just interact in the chat module, and you can always have a final a human in the loop approval, so
Absolutely,
that you can make sure that what's happening is approved by you. But I think it probably save a lot of time and hassle into uh, trying to find all those buttons and
absolutely.
UIs or scripts and stuff like that. And
You're
I
right.
think that will probably increase
Yeah.
the job satisfaction of a lot of Azure engineers as well.
Absolutely, you use the right term, human in the loop. So essential, because everything that we're saying, it's a co-pilot, it's an agent, all human triggered. Agents with autonomy also, eventually they'll seek human approval to close certain things, if at all it's a critical element. So before pushing something into production, human approval is essential, so that you know what time it should be pushed and what
Correct.
is the reality on the ground. You bring in that thinking, but you're the thinker.
Yep.
Let's, somebody's executing on a behalf for sure, but they're aligned to your thinking. So never let go of your thinking mode while you use AI, is the lesson we've learned in the last 24 months.
Great. Well, thank you so much, Sandeep, for being here and discussing all the latest and greatest announcements by Microsoft in the
Yeah,
latest Ignite. I'm sure that the audience will really enjoy it. I mean, of course, the keynotes are wonderful. I encourage everybody to see it.
yeah,
But if you are strapped for time, just this will catch you up to whatever the major announcements made by Microsoft. So once again, Sandeep, thank you so much for being with us. Really appreciate it.
No, thank you for having me. Love this conversation, Bhavesh. Good luck to you.
Thank you. Bye bye.